You're listening to the Quint's podcast.
You know how they say sticks and stones may break my bones, but words can never hurt me? We all know that's not true. Words can hurt, and they may not break bones, but they can break spirits. You know, sometimes I think back to my school days, the kids who got bullied and picked on, and even the kids who did the bullying, and I wonder about their lives now, as adults. I wonder if the sticks, stones, and words have left impressions on the people they've become, the way in which they interact with others at work, on dates, in social settings. Perhaps you're one of them, and you know exactly what I'm talking about. Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of Not Fine Thanks, the everyday mental health podcast where we discuss things that you, me, and those around us experience but don't always talk about. I'm your host Anushka.
Hey, what's up? How are you?
Work is so stressful, yeah.
Man, I feel like I'm wasting my youth.
I feel like I just can't sustain relationships.
Not fine. Thanks.
On this podcast, I usually have a couple of people come join me in the studio here at the Quint, and we have a conversation about the subject of the week. We've talked about body image issues, burnout, social media, climate anxiety, but this week we're doing things a little differently. On this week's episode, I spoke to two young professionals in their 20s and I recorded with them separately. Arefa, a 26-year-old who works in the social sector, was bullied growing up, and M, he doesn't want to be named, is a 23-year-old sports journalist who admits to having bullied other kids when he was in school. Both these people have self-reflected since then and have come a long way in their journeys. In the second part of the podcast, I will be speaking to Ipsa James, a psychologist who shares their insights into the matter, so do stick around for that as well. Hi Arefa, thank you so much for joining me today. So to begin with, can you tell me a bit about your experience with bullying when you were younger? How did it manifest for you?
So, for me, the bullying that happened was more on an emotional front. There was no violence per se, right? It wasn't physical. It really happened during junior college, that was grade 11 and 12. And what happened was just a lot of, I would say, elite group of people just sort of finding this one person who they can target, because I never really spoke. I used to be in my shell and I liked it. It was out of choice that I was doing it. But it was taken as, okay, this is a person that, we can talk anything about and say anything to her, and she probably won't say much back. And that's cool, because we can be as insensitive as we want to be, and she really won't retaliate. A lot of what happened was around the fact that I used to be termed as, oh, she's a slut. She sleeps around with the guys in the school, and like in front of me, like if I mean, they know that I can hear what they're saying, or I know that they're gesturing towards me and literally like shunning me out. There was just a lot of anxiety. There was a lot of I want to get out of here. Every time I entered college, it just felt extremely unsafe, and I couldn't wait to leave, because I knew that people are just looking at me and judging me. And I just didn't feel very safe there.
How do you think the experience has shaped the person you are today?
There was definitely a lot of self-hate, right? And what happened was that I was anyways a very insecure person. That just added to it, right? And what it made me feel during college was just that I'm not a nice person, one. Second, even though I knew internally for myself that whatever is being spread about me is actually not true, I started also believing it, and it almost felt like I was manifesting it. It was more on the lens of um, getting, like, I used to try to befriend them, because I thought that if I do that, they'll shut up about me, you know. And that was very evident. I had become so desperate for their attention also, because even I wanted to be that person who fits into that popular group of schools, right? I wanted it. I wanted to be on the other side, where probably I think because of how unaware I was also at that point of time, I would have ended up bullying somebody else along with them.
How's that experience of yours, the remnants of it, does it show up in your personality as an adult, your relationships, you at work?
Definitely. I think one of the things is that I've become, and I don't look at this as a bad thing, right? I have become very sensitive towards um, just certain things, right? Like, for example, people saying that I have put on weight or I'm fat. Uh, that itself just brings back memories of that life, and it just gets me very upset. I think for me, the realization came in only after I got out of that space. One. Second is that just through the experiences I've had in life, I have become a very self aware and reflective person. So now I'm at a stage where I can actually think about some of the thoughts that I have. And I can get to why am I having those thoughts. And more often than not, even through therapy, I've realized that this part of like that part of my life, grade 11 and 12, had a significant impact in how I am as a person today, and I also choose to be as a person today. I used to be an extremely emotional person to an extent where I could not manage my emotions, and I did give a reaction, right? Because I retaliate. Um, and that is something that I'm working on, right? That part of me is something that I'm working on, because I know that there's a better way to also address these situations, right? What I'm trying to also do is drive from a lot of awareness of the fact that people don't know better, and that is true. There may be 10 other things that I don't know better of, and I don't even know that I'm doing something that could be harming someone else, or it could hurt somebody else, but I'm doing it because I don't know it for the longest time. And I think I would still say that I don't even think they knew that what they were doing was bullying. I still feel like people don't realize that they're bullying other people primarily because they look at it as, hey, I'm being cool, or yeah, it's just a joke, get over it. Or why are you so sensitive about these things?
And this also applies to family members, right? Like, I don't think they even think of it as bullying, or for them, it's just like passing small talk, or, talking about your weight or your hair, or just pointing out stuff about you. They don't even think of it as a negative thing. It to them, it's just, oh, we're making conversation.
Yeah, and it comes out of a very, it sounds very weird, because they say that it comes out from an intent of care, right? That, hey, Arifa, you're fat. And I'm just like, how is that caring for me? If you care for me, then you say, hey, I say you've put on weight. That's concerning. What are you doing to take care of yourself? That's a different thing altogether, right? But if you're just coming and telling me I'm fat, or my hair, or I'm having hair fall, I know those things about myself. You're just reiterating facts. You're not doing anything to help me out here. And this is something I used to tell my students a lot, that every time you want to crack a joke, which is directed towards somebody, right? Stop and think about, if the same joke was said to you, how would you feel? Is that going to cause any sort of triggers or any sort of doubts about how you are as a person? Is that going to make you feel bad? And if the answers to that is yes, then you shut up. You don't crack that joke, right? um, and more often than not, they have realized that after they've cracked it, कि अरे ये तो नहीं बोलना चाहिए था, which is also a good thing, right? And it comes with practice, right? There are so many times that I have also said things to my friends that I realize now that I was also in a way bullying them. um, and I never realized it. I realize it now, and I've gone back and apologized, because I'm just like, I'm so sorry I said these things to you, and I have no idea how they would have made you feel. Whatever I said, how would that have validated some of your worst insecurities and fears about yourself? And I know for a fact that it's not something that is going to change in a day or in 2 days. It is a long term process.
I'm Sam's story also has a similar start. He says that being the new kid in school and being picked on by others led him to becoming a bully himself. Can you tell me a little bit about your childhood? Are there moments or incidents that you can kind of trace back to being the reason or cause for you becoming a bully?
Yeah, so I think since we were from an army background, every 2 years going to a new school was already a little more scary to say, because at that point I was always an introvert from the start. So over time, when you keep changing schools, that whole perception becomes even more tougher, because you're like even more people to deal with than a normal like a normal child would have to. So when I actually came into my 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th, I think those were the years where I got to see both sides of the whole term of bullying as such. So in 9th and 10th, I think even though there were friends in your class and there were different people and you're all from the same crowd as such, so it was a very different experience for me, because I had come like new into the school. The wrong side of it was just beginning then, like the memes and all had become a big thing to talk about. So that had become a big talking point in our school, and everyone had recognized me and associated with like me with that meme. And that obviously affected me to a point, because as you know, like people would obviously at that age they would have seen you in a different light and see associated you with that thing. So that obviously pushed me away from people, and I did not want to socialize much, neither did I have the will to come to school as
Right.
much.
You mentioned just now that you were on both sides of bullying. Can you tell me a little bit about how this experience of yours led you, to the other side? How did this happen?
So I think when we go to our 11th standard, there's a big shuffle in terms of you having to opt for another school versus staying in the same school. So during that time, I think that was a little like a, as I saw it at that time, it was a saving grace of sorts, because then people would forget and then the crowd would change. So when we reached that stage, I think I've had that kind of that vengeance mindset in me, that if it happened to me, I think now I've reached that phase where I should make someone else feel that way or something. So for example, like I remember in the bus, we used to all come back by bus and travel by bus. So there used to be juniors there, and there were a few of them who were very into, like, how do you put it, they were more into they were studious students who just wanted to come, sit and go. And we obviously did not like that, and we wanted to play around. And for me it meant even more, I think, because I was like, I used to be that like a year or two back, and I had to go through all that. So I wanted a chance to, I think, kind of feel better about it. So there were instances where even I ended up bullying the juniors later on, and then I think one of them eventually went and told the principal, and there was a big deal about it.
How did you bully other kids? What did you do?
Okay, so for I think for starters, it was just mocking someone. It started off with like, say, fat shaming or body shaming someone who was a little more studious, and like trying to just play around with them, like like not physical bullying as such, but like playfully trying to make the other person annoyed, or try to get to their head. And when it came to mental bullying, I think it would just be like picking on things like they wouldn't want to be picked about, like a studious guy not being very athletic, so trying to find that aspect, saying that you don't run enough, you just eat or something like that, or something which would affect them. These were the kind of things that I don't think we realized the importance of what we are saying at that point. But at that point of time, I don't think I was thinking right, neither did I want to do the right thing. I just wanted to do what made me feel better at that point, I feel.
So when you say it made you feel better, how did picking on other kids make you feel better? Did you, did it make you feel more in control, or because you felt like you had some sort of a power over others, or were
Yeah.
you just
I think
entertained?
a lot of it has to do with like the fact, like when it first happens to you, you feel very helpless and you feel very powerless with the whole factor that, oh, I can't do anything, neither can I like influence anyone into like being associated with me. So I felt that when I got the chance to do it, it would have so many more aspects. Like firstly, I would get that whole factor of being powerful and actually showing my dominance. which I never got a chance to do. And secondly, I thought like if you are doing that, there are other people joining in with you. So you eventually get a chance to have a certain clan, as you say, like acha, we are the people who can go and bully others types. So that would form a bond and that would help you socialize and get friends that way. So at that point of time, there was no thinking as such as to why I was doing it. But now that I look back, I realize what was which side of it was I on.
Right. And at that point, did you realize what you were doing is bullying? Like how it's affected the other kids, or do you think of it as just harmless fun?
See, firstly, when I was doing it in this, like when I just realized that I can be this person, I think I had a certain time where I was just enjoying it because I was like, bro, I've suffered a lot and I've seen the other side a lot. So I was thinking to myself and I felt ki it shouldn't matter because if I have gone through this, then how, I don't think it would be bad for someone else to feel the way I felt. So at that point of time, I did not think it's a big deal because you never actually realize at that point of time what others will be feeling, and you're more about how you should feel. I think that selfish aspect was always there.
Right. How did you come to the point of reflecting on this behavior since, you've been on both sides of it, like you said? How do you think the experience has shaped the person you are today?
So, firstly, when we went to college, it's a very different atmosphere there compared to school because in school you're going at a certain time, coming at a certain time. You're with your parents. You live a very the tuitions, all that. So you're living in a very repetitive and a very cyclic life, I would say. So when I went to college, I realized that there are so many things to explore and there's so much to do and there's so many people to get to know that things like these are not going to have any kind of mark on them. Like you're obviously into a new environment and you have a group of friends, so you would want to get to know them better, so you have the normal banter which was there. But then I realized ki there is something different that has to be done this time, because if I'm in college, I know in terms of the social aspect, it's going to be 10 times more than school, and I'm going to meet people from different places of the country. So I realized this is the opportunity to get to know people and to actually live the life without keeping this as an aspect. Like never believed that this is going to help my growth in the college, or this is not going to help me make more friends or be a better person, or actually live a good life, because I knew I'm there only for 3 years in college, and if I do such a thing and all, I'm just going to waste my time and the other person as well. I'm going to make it tougher for them. That was a very liberating kind of feeling, because after that, that aspect didn't exist. Like when I wake up, I don't actually think that I would want to do that to someone. So it's all about something to push you ahead. I don't think I feel like ever pulling anyone down, nor myself.
Right. Just lastly, so the kids, that you used to bully, did you meet them? You mentioned at the beginning, but did
Right.
you kind of talk about it later at any point?
Yeah, so I think the I met this the person who I bullied. I think when I was in college and I'd come back and I met him somewhere. I think when we were playing some sports somewhere in the sports complex. So we were talking normally, and then it felt nice to see that even he had gone through his college life and he had changed a lot, and then we had just spoken about how times used to be, and we just laughed about it, and even I told him ki bro, you remember this, and I apologize for that, and I actually felt bad that that was me not a very long time ago. So I spoke to him and I had like discussed about whatever had happened, and then he also was very like, okay, it was long back, now we are living another life, and we have so much on our plate now and in the next few years that all of this will not mean, this won't be very important. So we had a normal discussion, we moved on obviously, and thankfully the guy realized it the way I did. And so now that I look back on the same people like who were there, I look now, I've still met them and all, and now it's like I look back and I think about how they were that time and how they are now, and I like to see that I've made like 100 times progress of those all the people who were involved back then. So I'm happy with where life has taken us now, but at that point of time, certainly it was a very hard pill to digest, I think.
Okay. Hi, Ipsa. Could you just, just going a little bit deeper into the psyche of a bully? Why do you think people bully? What are the different factors that kind of contribute to making a bully, do you think, from a psychological point of view?
Hi, Anushka. So one thing that is usually very prominently seen is that a bully is also a person who's bullied, right? So let's say I'll give you a very simple example. Let's say I am around adults, yeah, and these adults are obviously people in power, and they are kind of controlling my life, and they're using that power against me. So now what I'm understanding is that violence gets me my way. Yeah, now that can be emotional violence that I am firsthand experiencing or I'm seeing, let's say, it on media and stuff. It can be physical violence that I'm experiencing, and then in order to get my way outside in the world, I end up bullying. You can also say that to a certain extent that people tend to bully because of the fact that they already have low self-esteem, and having that power over somebody's life gives them a boost of self-esteem as well. This is kind of a muddled, very like sad space to be in. Like, it's like a chain, almost like a domino effect. Somebody's being bullied and they're bullying, and then they are bullying other people, and those other bullies are bullying other people. It's kind of like that.
Right. And so, if we just talk about bullying in schools or among children, a lot of the times
Hmm.
people may not even realize what they're doing is bullying. A lot of the times people may think,
Hmm.
oh, this is just in good fun, or we're just this is just banter, or we're just
Hmm.
doing this in jest. But like
Hmm.
to another person who they're doing it to, it
Hmm.
it may have a very profound impact. So, how does a person recognize
Hmm.
if they are you know uh,
Huh.
bullying, or where do you kind of draw the line?
Draw the line.
Something,
Huh.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I think a lot of it has to look into the kind of relationship that you have with that person,
Mm.
right? So let's say you and I are friends, and I can pull your leg, and that would not be considered bullying,
Mhm.
because that is the kind of relationship that we have. A little bit of leg pulling and fun is allowed.
Mm.
Yeah. But let's say if I am a person, I'm clearly a person in power,
Mm.
yeah, and I'm using that power against you, and you're not okay with, like, it doesn't have to be just um, verbalization of the fact that what you're doing is not okay. At times it can be a lot of body language.
Mm.
If I am, let's say, averting eye contact, or when you're coming my way, I am taking another route, or I'm hiding behind people, or I'm not turning up to class,
Mhm.
I'm coming home with bruises, I'm coming home with, let's say, copies being torn apart, or my copies being stolen, or my stuff goes missing. All of this is bullying, which is causing not just like physical harm, but also psychological harm in
Right.
that sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, just going from there, what is the psychological impact of bullying on a person who has been bullied, especially, someone who's been
Hmm.
bullied in their childhood? How does that manifest in their
Hmm.
adulthood?
Hmm. I think the biggest thing that one can see is that their self-esteem would be quite bad,
Mm.
to be honest. Like the relationship that they have with themselves is extremely ruptured,
Mm.
because obviously when you grow up, one thing that you need to understand is that in case you are also a person who bullied people,
Mhm.
because you were bullied, there's that guilt that you're carrying from bullying these people,
Mhm.
and also not being able to understand that your actions had such consequences, so you have to live with that guilt and reconcile with that,
Mhm.
right? Which also ruptures your relationship. And the fact that somebody bullied me anyways ruptured my relationship, because in usual bullying, a lot of people are not able to stand up to the other person,
Right.
right? So let's say if I was able to stand up to my bully, I would definitely have better self-esteem, and that's why I'm able to do the that. Other
Mm.
that I would say is, obviously there would be neurodivergences, right? Their brain would have done things to cope with the kind of environment, the hostile environment that they were experiencing. So let's say in that sense, substance use or self-harm, depression,
Mhm.
like I said, anxiety, other, let's say, mental health concerns that are maybe genetically in your family that get triggered. For example, maybe bipolar or schizophrenia. just there and triggered because of the stressful environment. That is definitely something to also be looked into. But I think one of the major things that one has to consider is that just bullying in itself doesn't lead to issues. Getting bullied and then not able to share it with an adult or a safe space, and having to go through those feelings and holding on to those feelings is what actually causes the issue. Yeah.
Right. And that really brings me to my next question, which is how do you cope with, if you've been bullied, if it's having an impact on you, how do you cope with that as kids? And also, like, if you are someone, an adult who, lives with that trauma of having been bullied as a child?
I think the best way to look at it would be the five major coping mechs that you can say our nervous system has. One is good old fight, right? So either I can take that anger that I have, that I experience because of the bullying, either I can take it on to the person who is actually bullying me, or I can reverse it on myself, usually leading to self-harm, right? Or substance issues. Obviously, children will start to cope in, you can say, quote unquote, what is considered not healthy ways. I would say there is no right or wrong way to cope. Whatever gets you through, the situation is good enough, in my experience. Then the other thing would be flight. So we've done fight. Next would be flight, where either you are avoiding school, you're avoiding people, you're losing friends. That is one way to go. Let's say, I can also look into freeze, which is where I might dissociate from my body or my mind. I don't know, I'm living in a fantasy world. I've gone into my shell, as what people call it, or I've checked out from the present, right? Because the present is too bad to deal with. Fourth would be what we considered fawning, where I am, either I join the bully and start bullying, or I tend to take care of their emotions, or I befriend them, tend or befriend in a usual common person language. And the last is find, where I actually find a safe space to talk about it. So these are the five major ways that we can cope. Again, there are substances, there are also, let's say, hobbies and stuff that you can cope with. So yeah, majorly this.
Right. But this would be, a person who is being bullied, right? Like, does this also apply to people who have been bullied in the past and have like remnants of, that in their, the way in which they function?
I think one thing that we really need to understand is how well has this person reconciled with the fact that they either were bullied or were bullies, or both, because both can also exist, right? A lot of times, again, based on the kind of social support system that I have, let's say if I have a judgy support system, obviously I will then harbor those feelings. If I have a supportive support system, then I would probably be able to alleviate that distress that I'm feeling by talking to these people. I can also go and read upon myself, or retrospectively like reflect on what was happening back then and give it context. Because you would see a lot of times, a lot of judgment that we either hold for self or others is contextless.
Thank you so much for listening to this week's episode of Not Fine Thanks. I'll be back next week with 2 more guests, and we're talking about relationships. Have you ever noticed how your relationship with your parents when you were growing up, the little things impact your adult relationships? Well, then the next episode is for you, so do tune in.